Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are discussing the cost of war against the Tyranids, the price the Imperium must pay to survive. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel Warriors of Ultramar by author Graham McNeill. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, survival within the 40k universe is a luxury that can never be taken for granted. It is a battle that is never ending, being fought out on nameless worlds within each second that passes. The Eldari race is shattered, teetering upon the brink of existence. The Tau, for all their promise, are now realising the true threats of the galaxy. And the Imperium, despite dominating the galaxy entire, must fight an eternal war just to survive. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Chaos exploits any weakness it can. The Orcs will fight themselves if there's no one else within reach. The Necrons seek to reclaim their stars, and for the Tyranids, there is only prey. It's arguable for this reason alone, the Tyranids represent the true doom of the galaxy. For with them there is no reasoning, there is no diplomacy, no understanding, only food. The Tyranids are truly alien. The truth of their race still a complete mystery. With each hive fleet that broaches the borders of the galaxy, more and more numbers of the beast are revealed. And with each tyrannic war, the Imperium loses more vital worlds and systems, and is forced to take yet more brutal actions to simply survive. And for me, the perfect example of this comes way back through the years within the novel Warriors of Ultramar. Oh yes, there's nothing like talking some old school lore. Now, Warriors of Ultramar was the second installment of the Uriel Ventress series, which, as I've said before, was my personal entry into reading 40k novels, with the original Ultramarines omnibus, all those many years ago. And within this, the Imperial world of Tarsis Ultra is threatened by the oncoming Hive Fleet Leviathan, this in the earlier days of the fleet's first emergence. Quite ironic that we now, so many years later, are finding ourselves bracing for the same Hive Fleet's return, with 10th edition. Now, the world of Tarsis Ultra was liberated by Guilliman and the Ultramarines during the Great Crusade, and during those events, Guilliman's life was saved by a human of the world, sacrificing himself to save the Primarch. This resulted in a promise by Guilliman that the Ultramarines would forever come to the aid of the world if it was ever threatened. And some 10,000 years later, that promise held true. In being an older story, this was long before Cadia had fallen and Guilliman was returned. So this was very much the Ultramarines honouring the legends of the past, supported by elements of the Imperial Navy, Militarum, and their successor chapter, the Mortifactors. Overall command of this defence went to the legendary Inquisitor Cryptman. Now, Cryptman's name is well known, possibly to more older fans of the lore than younger, as he was the Inquisitor who first discovered the emergence of the Tyranid race, even naming them the Tyranids after the fallen world of Tyran, becoming an integral name in the First Tyrannic War and beyond. Now, here in the early stages of the Third Tyrannic War, he arrived to assist the Imperium in stopping this newly arrived threat. And in typical Inquisitor fashion, in the very first strategic meeting, there's a very telling line describing the lengths he was prepared to go to. "We must stop the Tyranids, gentlemen, here and now. For if the shadow in the warp is allowed to smother the divine light of the Astronomicon, then humanity will surely perish. Ships will be unable to navigate the warp, communication across the galaxy will cease, and the Imperium will collapse. Make no mistake, we are fighting for the future of our very race, and I am willing to make any sacrifice to ensure its survival." Unknown to Cryptman, he's actually almost describing the fate of the future Imperium Nihilus. However, he's not wrong. Any fight against the Tyranid Hive fleet is a battle for survival, because every victory the Tyranids gain, every world they reach, only strengthens the Hive fleet further. The only way to defeat the Tyranids is to stop them, to deny them the resources they so preciously need, resources they hunger for. Tarsis Ultra, like so many worlds the Tyranids encounter, was woefully unprepared for the threat it was about to face, and so the strategy was decided to stall the Hive fleet's progress as much as possible, to buy any time they could to prepare the world for the battle to come. When the first outer world in the system came under assault, Barbarous Prime, no, not that one, the Imperial fleet raced to meet it, and an ensuing void battle took place over the world. The Imperials would win the skirmish, but they were too late to save Barbarous, and the battle had been costly. A cost against the Tyranids you can never afford to make. And so, as the evacuation of worlds continued, as the Tyranids progressed in system, and as the Tyranids neared the populated world of Cordelis, Inquisitor Cryptman informed the commanders of the measures they needed to take. Only 2 days ago, in the captain's chamber on the command deck of the Argus, Cryptman had told them of his decision to let Cordelis die. "We have no choice," the Inquisitor had said. "Fighters from the Carlos Vincennes have harried the vanguard of the alien fleet, from Barbarous past Perosa and Yulon. The Tyranids will be here within 3 or 4 days at the latest. There is simply no more time to get anyone else off Cordelis. If we stay any longer, we will doom what little assets we have. And for what? We could fight, and we would gain perhaps a day's respite for the defenders on Tarsis Ultra. And once we are defeated, the Tyranids will devour Cordelis as they did Barbarous Prime, swelling their numbers with an entire planet's biosphere." Cryptman shook his head. "No. Far better Cordelis dies by our own hand than that of the Great Devourer. Believe me, Exterminatus is a better, quicker death than the Tyranids will offer." Now, the assembled commanders reacted in a stunned silence, to say the least. But we need to remember the average military commander doesn't generally have any interaction with the Inquisition. The Inquisition and the Inquisitors are like a hushed whisper to be feared. We the readers are used to their harsh, brutal measures by now, their extraordinary sacrifices of life. However, most people in the Imperium are not. Even for Astartes, it's not that common. And so to experience this kind of seemingly callous decision making, it's got to be a truly sobering moment. And when you know the horror and truth of the Tyranid race, can you really say Cryptman is wrong? Now, the Ultramarines object to Cryptman's decision, as you may have expected, arguing that there must be another way. And what's even the point of coming to defend the system if their first reaction is to simply obliterate all of it? Yet again, Cryptman speaks with the voice of a man who has seen the threat the Tyranids truly represent. "You do not see the larger picture, Captain Ventress," said Cryptman, emphasizing the insignificance of his rank next to his own. "We are at war with forces too terrible to comprehend, and one must sometimes sacrifice the smaller battles to be victorious in the larger war." "Listen to yourself," snapped Uriel. "You talk of sacrificing smaller battles. Do you not realize that you are talking about one of the Emperor's worlds, still populated by millions of his subjects, his soldiers? I think that it is you who forgets the larger war." "No, Captain Ventress," said Cryptman with finality. "I do not." And there it is. In one simple, final response, Cryptman lays clear the difference between an Inquisitor and an Astarte. The mindset of Cryptman versus Captain Ventress's. Uriel isn't wrong here. His purpose is to defend the Imperium, to defend mankind. And here we have a world with millions of loyal people who deserve the right to fight, to be defended. I think most of us would feel how Uriel does in face of the reality of the situation. Yet Cryptman isn't thinking of the millions of souls on Cordelis. He's thinking of the countless billions and billions of souls across the Imperium entire. Cryptman knows here the Tyranids cannot be stopped. Their best hope, if there is one, is to marshal their strength on the system's main world of Tarsis Ultra. Denying the Tyranids the opportunity to feed makes the most logical sense. In many ways, Ventress exhibits the nobleness of his Primarch, undoubtedly knowing Cryptman is right if he could look at the wider picture impassively, but instead knowing in his very core that his duty is to defend mankind. And sacrificing a world, sacrificing millions of souls for the hope of another, is simply not the right thing to do. That it's not his place to weigh the value of one life against another. It's an interesting comparison between chapters. There are many, such as the Salamanders, who would feel exactly as Uriel does here, making their decisions guided by their heart. However, equally there would be chapters who saw the logic and wisdom of Cryptman's decision. The Iron Hands, an obvious example for one. A simple matter of numbers. By sacrificing the few here, the many have a greater chance to be saved. And this is a predicament and situation faced by every commander who comes up against the Tyranid threat, in many ways making them face the morality of battle, of head versus heart, knowing that the sacrifice of some may embolden the hopes for others. How ironic it's the heartless Tyranids that provoke this war of wills within those they face. And this very conversation, this very mental battle, will be playing out countless times over in the war and battles to come, as the Imperium has to desperately try to stall and stop the might of another Hive fleet, or technically still more of Leviathan, a new tendril that's emerged far from the galactic might wielded by the Lord Commander Guilliman. But as for Cordelis and Tarsis Ultra, the argument in the room would continue, with Cryptman listening to alternate suggestions, even agreeing to one of the Ultramarines' appeals, only to order the exterminatus after Ventress and his men were gone. And that's the cold, harsh truth of the Inquisition. They will do whatever they must to ensure the Imperium the Imperium survives. Not just one single world, even if that contains millions of lives. Again, it's a very interesting dilemma to face, and one that we could never truly understand. Just what factors truly can be weighed against the others? Is it simply a matter of numbers, the lesser losing out to the greater? Or can there be other factors at play? Would a more prominent world weigh the odds? It's a question even Uriel is forced to consider in the aftermath of Cryptman's betrayal, asking a fellow chapter officer if Lord Calgar would have allowed Macragge itself to be destroyed in the infamous defeat of Hive Fleet Behemoth. The mere notion of it is absurd, with Tiberius replying that Calgar would never have allowed it. However, his answer for Cordelis isn't so certain. That for all Calgar's compassion, he is a master strategist. And there's one line within his reply to Uriel that really strikes a chord with me, summing up that war against the Tyranids well. I think that perhaps you and I are too fond of the idea of saving everyone we can. Uriel refuses to accept Cryptman's methods, and maybe rightly so, in the ideals of the Imperium as it should be. But it's that idea of saving everyone that has to be faced, because to try that, to attempt to do so, could very well leave the throne world itself open to assault. For again, the Indomitus Crusades and Commander Guilliman are going to be a galaxy away. Now, with the Tyranids returned, the months and years ahead will see the morality of the Imperium's survival played out. But as always everyone, what do you think? How do you think Guilliman will respond to dealing with the Tyranids in a major way? Would the Lord Commander, the Imperial Regent, make those same brutal decisions? Does the nobleness, the humanity, the compassion the Lord Commander has outweigh his renowned strategic mind? Will he see that sacrificing the lives of loyal subjects makes his Imperium no better than chaos? Or will he accept the brutal decisions are the only way? Before Guilliman can survive, will we see the High Lords of Terror make those same decisions as he? Or in their preference for the throne world's survival, will they be more than willing to forsake those less important worlds? And in knowing the Custodes themselves will be part of the defense fleets facing the Tyranids, how do you think they will respond to these kind of decisions? Will they place the Emperor's survival as paramount, or will they aspire to his ideals? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.